The smoke rising from the inner chamber of Carthage had nothing to do with prayer. It smelled of rendered fat, scorched resin, and a cold, industrial terror. The year is 146 BC. A great civilization is not just losing a war, it is being erased from the map. Outside, the Roman legions are a wall of iron. Inside, the elite of Carthage are making a final, desperate transaction. They are not bartering with silver. They are not offering grain. They are offering the only currency a silent God accepts: their own blood, their own children, their own future. For 2,000 years, we believed the Roman version of this story. We believed Carthage was a city of monsters. But beneath the ash and the propaganda lies a truth far more disturbing. This is not just a story of a fallen city. This is the autopsy of a genocide. The city did not fall in a day. It died in stages, gasping for air as the Roman noose tightened around its throat. By the final months of 146 BC, the Queen of the Mediterranean was a skeleton of its former self. But in the heart of the city, inside the temple of Ba'al Hammon, the fires were hotter than they had been in 6 centuries. At the center of the ritual space stood the idol. It was a masterwork of bronze and cruelty. Ba'al Hammon, the Lord of the Heavens, was depicted as an ancient, seated figure with arms outstretched, palms up, slanting toward a gaping pit of white-hot charcoal. The statue was hollow. Its belly was a furnace fed by seasoned olive wood, designed to reach temperatures that turned the bronze limbs a glowing, translucent red. The elite families of Carthage, the merchant princes who once owned the sea, stood in the flickering shadows. These were the men and women who had spent their lives calculating profit and loss. Now, they were facing a debt that could not be settled with gold. The atmosphere was not one of panic. It was one of mechanical, ritualistic precision. The drums were the heartbeat of the temple. Huge, oxhide frames struck by mallets in a rhythm so low and so powerful that it vibrated through the stone floors and into the marrow of the worshippers' bones. The purpose of the noise was not musical. It was a barrier. It was a wall of sound designed to swallow the screams of what was about to happen. The ritual was known as the Molk. In the Carthaginian mind, the universe was a ledger. If you wanted the sun to rise, if you wanted the Roman ships to sink, if you wanted your city to breathe one more day, you had to pay. And the gods were the ultimate creditors. They didn't want the surplus of your fields. They wanted the heart of your home. As the Roman siege engines battered the outer walls, the first of the noble daughters was led forward. She was dressed in white linen, her hair braided with gold wire. She did not struggle. Whether drugged by the juice of the black poppy or fueled by a fanatical belief that her death would buy her city's life, she walked toward the glowing bronze palms. The transaction was about to be finalized. Why did the massive war drums pound during the ritual? A. Drown out screams. B. Honor the gods. C. Signal Roman troops. D. Start the music. Correct answer is A. Silence was a void. The drums filled it. Stay with us till the end for valuable insights and more questions. Like, subscribe, and share to support the channel. Carthage did not just trade. It strangled. To understand why Rome was willing to commit the ultimate crime of genocide, you have to understand the Kothan. It was not a harbor. It was a machine of supreme naval dominance. The outer basin was for the world. It was a chaotic, shifting forest of masts and sails. This was the civilian front. Here, the air was thick with the smell of rotting fish, expensive spices, and the heavy, sweet scent of cedar wood. Thousands of merchant vessels rotated through these docks in a ceaseless rhythm of cargo and coin. But this was merely the skin of the beast. Concealed behind a massive, circular wall lay the inner harbor, the military heart of the empire. It was a perfect circle, engineered with a precision that made foreign diplomats fall silent in terror. At its center sat a small island, the admiral's palace, rising like a watchtower over a fleet of 220 warships. These were not boats. They were quinqueremes, five-banked killing machines. Their hulls were fitted with reinforced bronze rams, designed to gut an enemy ship below the waterline with a single, calculated strike. The men who rode these machines were not slaves. They were free citizens. They were the backbone of the state, trained from childhood to move as one, to strike as one. They didn't row for a master. They rowed for the silver that flowed into their pockets and the walls that protected their families. This was the source of the Roman nightmare. Rome was a land power, a creature of the dirt and the shield wall. Carthage was a creature of the deep. But by 146 BC, the Kothan was a graveyard. The 220 warships were gone, burned or captured in previous wars. The circular military port, once the most feared sight in the Mediterranean, was now a stagnant pool. The stone causeway built by the Roman general Scipio had sealed the harbor mouth shut. The Queen of the Sea was now a prisoner in her own house. The wealth that once bought the world was useless. The silver mines in Iberia were gone. The gold caravans from the Sahara had stopped. The only thing the aristocrats had left was the legacy of the flame. They believed that if they could not win by coin or by iron, they would win by the ultimate sacrifice. They turned away from the empty harbor and looked toward the Tophet. If the sea would not save them, perhaps the fire would. What was hidden behind the civilian merchant harbor? A secret treasury. B, an escape tunnel. C, 220 warships. D, a grain silo. Correct answer is C. The civilian front hid the military engine. The wealth of Carthage was not a gift from the heavens. It was a harvest of ruthlessness. For centuries, the city did not just participate in the Mediterranean economy, it owned it. But the source of this power was a substance so rare and so repulsive that it defined the Carthaginian soul. Tyrrhene purple. This was the color of kings. A single bolt of fabric dipped in this dye cost more than a common soldier earned in a lifetime. But the process of creating it was a descent into a waking nightmare. The dye was harvested from the mucus glands of the murex sea snail. To produce 1 ounce of the pigment, 10,000 snails had to be methodically crushed and left to rot in massive open-air vats. The stench in the lower quarters of Carthage was a physical weight. It was a foul, chemical rot that saturated the stone walls and the very skin of the laborers. These men, the backbone of the industrial machine, were stained for life. Their hands were a permanent, bruised violet, a mark of their caste. Yet, the aristocrats in the upper city draped themselves in this color as if it were a second skin. They ate from hemmed gold and reclined on imported marble, all while the smell of the snail rot reminded them of the price of their status. But there is a sickness that only absolute wealth can produce. When you own everything, you develop a pathological terror of losing it. The Carthaginians did not love their gods. They feared them like a debtor fears a violent creditor. Their theology was a cold, hard contract. The two supreme figures were Ba'al Hammon, the master of storms, and Tophet, the goddess of war and bloodlines. These were not guardians. They were transactional entities. The ancient term for this arrangement was a mulk, a sacred vow, a debt sworn against the soul. If a merchant needed his ships to survive a storm in the Atlantic, he swore a mulk. If a general needed to crush a rebellion, he swore a mulk. And the gods always came to collect. A goat was pocket change. A slave was worthless because a slave represented no personal loss to a man who owned 1,000. The gods demanded the only asset the petitioner valued more than his own life. They demanded the elite. Forensic archaeology has shattered the old Roman stories. The urns found beneath the ruins do not just contain infants. They contain the calcified remains of fully grown, high-status women. Priestesses, daughters of admirals, wives of magistrates. These were the operational pillars of the state. To give them to the fire was to rip a support beam out of the house. It was a mathematical proof of devotion. The currency was not flesh. The currency was grief. What was the true cost of the royal purple dye? A. Human sacrifice rituals. B. Years of fermentation. C. 10,000 crushed snails. D. Boiling silver ore. Correct answer is C. Wealth was built on industrial rot. Before Rome could rewrite the history of Carthage, it first had to survive the memory of its own blood. To understand the Roman rage of 146 BC, you must go back to August 216 BC. The plains of Cannae. The sun was a white disk in a sky choked with dust. 80,000 Roman soldiers stood in a solid, rectangular block of iron. This was the largest force the Republic had ever assembled. It was a hammer designed to crush one man, Hannibal Barca. The Roman strategy was simple, almost primitive. Push forward. Use sheer physical tonnage to break the Carthaginian center. For generations, this hammer had never failed. On this day, it became the instrument of their suicide. Hannibal did not meet the Roman charge with a wall. He met it with a net. As the Roman mass surged forward, the Carthaginian center line, composed of Gauls and Iberians, slowly bent backward. It did not break. It sagged. The Romans, sensing victory, pushed deeper into the pocket. They packed tighter. They crowded each other so closely that the men in the middle could no longer raise their shields or swing their swords. Then, the trap snapped shut. On the flanks, Hannibal's heavy African infantry pivoted inward like two iron doors. Behind the Roman rear, the Numidian cavalry wheeled around to seal the only exit. The envelope was complete. 80,000 men were trapped in a compressing ring of bronze. What followed was not a battle. It was a 6-hour industrial process of killing. The Roman formation was so dense that soldiers suffocated standing up, crushed by the weight of their own comrades. The Carthaginian mercenaries worked the edges of the mass with mechanical precision, harvesting lives like grain. By dusk, the dirt of the Apulian plain had turned into a thick, adhesive red mud. Hannibal did not just kill the army, he stripped the soul of the Republic. He ordered his soldiers to collect the gold signet rings from the fingers of the fallen Roman aristocrats. He sent thousands of these rings back to Carthage. He poured them onto the floor of the Senate, a glittering, clinking cascade of receipts for a generation of dead leaders. Rome lost 1/5 of its adult male population in a single afternoon. The trauma did not heal. It metastasized into a permanent, institutional rage. Rome learned that it could be hunted. It learned what it felt like to be meat. And when the Roman Senate eventually turned its eyes back to Carthage decades later, they weren't looking for a treaty. They were looking for a way to make sure the ghost of Cannae never breathed again. How did Hannibal defeat the larger Roman army? A. Superior long-range archers. B. Encircling them completely. C. Using poisoned water. D. Heavy mountain elephants. Correct answer is B. The Roman strength became their cage. Economic jealousy is a powerful spark, but it cannot burn a city to the ground. To convince a republic to commit genocide, you need more than a trade dispute. You need a monster. By 152 BC, Carthage was a ghost that refused to stay buried. Despite losing its empire and paying a massive indemnity, the city was thriving. It was a miracle of resilience. The Roman senator Cato the Elder, a man of iron and old-world grit, was sent to inspect this defeated rival. He expected to find a village of beggars. Instead, he found a metropolis pulsing with life. Cato saw the warehouses overflowing with grain. He saw the silver ingots stacked like firewood. He saw the elite of Carthage draped in Tyrian purple, eating from plates of solid gold. To Cato, this wasn't prosperity. It was an insult. It was a threat. If a city could rebuild its wealth this quickly, how long until it rebuilt its navy? How long until another Hannibal crossed the Alps? Cato returned to the Roman Senate with a weapon. He did not bring a sword. He brought a piece of fruit. He stood before the assembled leaders of Rome, reached into his toga, and dropped a fresh North African fig onto the marble floor. This fig, Cato said, his voice a low growl, was harvested in Carthage just 3 days ago. The silence in the room was absolute. Every senator understood the subtext. If a fig could reach Rome in 3 days, so could a Carthaginian fleet. The proximity was a dagger at their throats. From that day on, Cato ended every speech, no matter the topic, with the same 6 words: Carthago delenda estimated Carthage must be destroyed. But the Senate needed a moral shield. They needed the Roman public to believe that destroying Carthage was a service to humanity. They turned their eyes toward the Tophet. Roman propagandists began a systematic campaign of character assassination. They took the complex, transactional rituals of the Carthaginian faith and stripped them of all context. They didn't talk about the noble women who went willingly to the fire to save their families. They told stories of priests snatching babies from their mothers' arms. They painted a picture of a death cult that fed on the blood of the innocent. They turned the Carthaginian gods into demons. They turned the Carthaginian people into monsters who didn't deserve the air they breathed. This was the perfect cover story. It allowed the Roman legions to march not as conquerors, but as liberators of a darkened world. It gave them permission to kill 500,000 people with a clear conscience. The genocide was dressed in the robes of moral authority. What did Cato's fig represent to the Roman Senate? A. Carthaginian agricultural weakness. B. A peace offering. C. Exotic luxury goods. D. Dangerous geographical closeness. Correct answer is D. Speed meant a sudden invasion. The end of Carthage was not a surrender. It was an extraction. In 146 BC, after 3 years of a suffocating siege, the Roman legions finally breached the inner walls of the Bursa citadel. What they found was a city that had already eaten itself. The citizens were walking ghosts, their ribs pressing against skin like the hulls of broken ships. They had boiled their leather sandals for soup. They had buried their dead in the floorboards of their homes. But as the Roman soldiers moved through the narrow, blood-slicked streets, they didn't just kill. They performed a systematic erasure. They didn't just want the Carthaginians dead. They wanted the memory of them to be a warning. They burned the great libraries. They smashed the statues of Tophet. And then, they turned to the Tophet. Roman scribes and military officers entered the sacred precinct of Ba'al Hammon. They saw the charred pits. They saw the rows of stone markers with their flat, financial inscriptions, that which was vowed. They saw the residue of the final sacrifices, the elite women who had walked into the flames hoping to save a city that was already lost. In that moment, the Roman propaganda engine found its fuel. They didn't see a desperate people trying to bribe their gods for survival. They saw a monstrous culture that deserved to be plowed into the earth. The story was set. For the next 2,000 years, history books would call the Carthaginians child killers and fanatics. The Roman victory was dressed in the robes of a moral crusade. Rome didn't just defeat a rival, it stole its character and replaced it with a nightmare. But the earth does not lie as well as men do. In the 20th century, archaeologists arrived at the ruins of Salambo. They cracked open the sealed urns that had been buried beneath the Roman rubble for millennia. They expected to find the evidence of Roman truth. Instead, they found a different story. The bones inside were not always the victims of murder. Many showed signs of natural death, infants who had died of disease, women who had passed from illness. The Carthaginians, it seems, were giving their most precious dead back to the gods in a final act of devotion, hoping to turn a personal tragedy into a communal blessing. The sacrificial pits were often sacred cemeteries, places where grief was recycled into hope. The Roman story was the ultimate character assassination. To justify the complete annihilation of a civilization, the salt in the soil, the burning of the books, the slaughter of 500,000 people, Rome had to make Carthage unlovable. They had to make the world believe that the smoke over the Tophet was the breath of a demon, rather than the desperate, heartbroken prayer of a dying people. The answer was never in the history books. It was sealed in the ash and the bone. And as we hold that evidence up to the light, we realize that the most dangerous weapon in the ancient world wasn't the Roman gladius or the Carthaginian quinquereme. It was the story told by the survivor. Question: what did modern archaeology find inside the sacrificial urns? A. Roman gold coins. B. Only animal bones. C. Evidence of disease. D. Empty clay jars. Correct answer is C. Natural death contradicted the Roman propaganda. If you enjoy dark untold history, subscribe because we uncover what others won't.